2002. Oh dear.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Oh, welcome to your feedback loop. Feedback loop. Stop screen sharing. I'm getting feedback even worse now. Why? Because I'm clicking on the wrong one, that's why. Oh dear. All of that simply because I wanted to do da 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 da. Yeah, see what happens when you try and do silly special effects. Special effects on a budget. Oh, see, this is what happens, folks. Sorry, I got my camera set up to chat with everyone while we were setting up, like we usually do, and we're getting ready to click the go live button. And then I've got this plan to do this kind of Star Wars intro, but it all fell to pieces into silliness. But there you go. This is my official lanyard. I think I'm gonna maybe I could stick it in the brim of me beanie hat when I'm wearing that. So when I walk around the store, yeah. We'll get into talking about this kind of stuff as we go along. I was just trying to inject some levity by, sort of giving a little nod towards that kind of culture war of welcome to the rebellion. You are now one of the rebels, and we're trying to deal with a immense federation that is a technological dictatorship that is attempting to dominate the world and take us all over. So welcome to the rebellion. Yeah, this is now the mark of the rebel. Are you a Jedi? Or maybe in another form of meme that I thought of for the culture war, the meme war, I am Exempticus. I am Exempticus. No, I am Exempticus. Maybe if you're not old enough, not like there's an age restriction, but maybe only the people above a certain age would remember the reference to the classic movie Spartacus, and obviously the story, the legend of Spartacus. When they come to get him, everybody starts standing up and saying, I am Spartacus. And we're now presented with this environment, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure it's happening in a lot of other places, certainly across Europe and over in the Americas. I am Exempticus. Yeah. I've seen a few examples this week of people trying to stand up in that fashion, and they're all individuals, but they're all acknowledging that there is a larger picture that they need to address, which means it is beneficial for them all to stand up and say, I am Exempticus. Basically pointing at the natural organic emergence of the unity and coordination that can often happen at a subconscious or subliminal level, simply because when people perceive a threat and realize that dealing with that threat would be only achievable if they work together. I know I've used this kind of classic cliched example many times in the past, but a singular human being, a singular man, cannot bring down and kill a woolly mammoth whereas a small group can, working together, a tribe working together can quite readily, deal with what is one of the largest land mammals within the academically accepted timeline of the existence of Homo sapiens sapiens, which is the technical jargon classification of us, what our development is at the moment. The people 12,000 years ago who knew how to hunt a woolly mammoth, knew how to work in a group, work as a unit to deal with a creature, an animal that was 5 times their height, near enough, in many cases, certainly could squish them quite easily. But those people learned to work together and address that threat such that they could successfully hunt those animals and make use of that bounty, that natural bounty. And over the last several days, there's been a lot really sort of pushing out into the mainstream now. For the past several episodes, I've done my usual kind of poetic rhetoric of ranting about the overtopping of the dam, and the dam is cracked, the levees are broken, etc., etc. All that kind of Noah's Ark analogy and metaphor to point out that don't stand your ground, don't waver now, wave. Don't get washed away by the wave now, because that's part of their intent. They are increasing the pressure, and they will potentially keep turning up that pressure to 11 to try and psychologically remove you from the battlefield. And that is metaphorical, please. Don't mistake it for being open warfare in the streets. It's not. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Sorry, I haven't done my usual kind of brand marketing intro. Good morning, global gulag, and all that kind of stuff.
You done it, Cookie. You done it. That's it.
Yeah. There you go. Welcome to another edition of Sol Excalibre on this terrible homemade special effects edition.
That's brilliant. I love that.
I am Exempticus.
Oh, it's mad though. I was just thinking. I managed to dip into the world of television yesterday. It wasn't really telly. It was just on a hub thing, ITV hub thing. And I thought, wow, just half an hour. I thought of a particular show that's out that seems to be very popular, and they put it in Wales this time. And I just thought, wow, what a that's it. That's how they do. If you're stuck in that world, if you're watching that kind of thing, then you are being dumbed down like crazy. Because I haven't watched that or been in. It's like when you step away from it for years and years or whatever, or you go in and have a look, it hits you like a wow. It's like, this is so dumbed down crap. It's just really is bad, and it's just the comedy's poor. Everything's bad about it. It's like little kids all giggling and laughing, almost like adult kids. It's kids TV. It's what I sort of saw it as. Kidults, and that's how it's been presented. And I don't know how many people watch this shite. I suppose I was adding to the numbers the other yesterday, but wow, that's just tells you it's good to dip in, just have a look at the madness. You think, well, that's if people are still watching that and still in that TV world kind of mind, where that is really affecting them, they don't realize how much that's affecting them. It's only when you step away for a long, long time, go back and go, fucking hell, that's how much power that thing has over you, that programming, that regular thing that you like and enjoy, or you think you do. And just because everybody else is doing it, you think it's like a national tradition to go and watch a TV show that comes on once a year or whatever. You don't realize how dumbed down they're actually, making you in your mind to laugh at that rubbish. What's a load of shite. Sorry.
I did in a similar fashion. I caught about 10-15 minutes worth of the Children in Need broadcast on the British Bullshitting Corporation. Yeah, and that was terrible. That was putting me on the spot to hold my tongue and not just start shouting at the TV. But
that regular programming thing, that habitual stuff they build into a society or into a culture, where this is what you do. and it's built around the TV and entertainment more than ever.
Mhm.
And in fact, that's the new gods, isn't it? You
I
know?
did wonder why nobody's considered doing a parody show, a parody soap opera called Coronation Street.
Mm.
Yeah, because you got Coronation Street, and as I pointed out many times, that word, you know, the etymology of the word corona, coronation, that's why it's called coronation, putting the ring on the head, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So why has nobody gone, hey, that's a good meme? Yeah, Coronation Street. This week, ding, 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 ding. Boris is going into isolation. Yeah. Cummings, I was tempted this week in the subtitle to put the comings and goings of Parliament. Yeah, Cummings has been given his goings orders. Yeah,
Well, according
it's like
to
watching the fucking soap operas.
yeah, that's it. And the tabloids are, you know, lapping it up. They're calling the reason why he was asked to leave so quickly, because he said he was going to leave at Christmas, Cummings, and he said he was going to, you know, move on. That's just, you know, a month or two away. But no, he went on Sunday. Apparently, he was asked to leave immediately because apparently Boris had read texts describing his new fiancée as Princess Nutnuts or something. She's a nutter, basically. Your missus is a nutter. You know, it's like so. He was asked to go immediately, apparently, according to the tabloid bullshit. But yeah.
So Boris's girlfriend is a nutter, according to Cummings, but Cummings was such a nutter that he thought it was okay for him to drive.
Yes.
To test his eyesight.
Yes.
No, you know, leave aside the fact that he was driving during the lockdown when he shouldn't have been out, you know. But
all the way to Durham as well.
His reasoning was he was driving to test his eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
If your eyesight is that bad that you need to test it in such a manner, then you would be blatantly a danger to every other road user and probably pedestrians as well.
Yeah.
So what are you saying? Are you a nutter? Are you a bit psycho? You know, you think that's a good thing to say? What the fuck?
And Professor,
that's the people in the cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, not forget the medical advisors as well, like Professor Ferguson, who they won off all of his data and analysis and models. He was then caught breaching the lockdowns and stuff. So
involved in a relation, supposedly, and I do say supposedly because I think a lot of it was deliberate theatre for other reasons. Yeah. But supposedly in a open relationship with a married woman who willingly travelled all the way across London during the lockdown. So she willingly put herself, you know, out there potentially to get arrested, or if you believe in all the COVID shit, she put herself out there at the risk of getting infected or infecting others, just to go and have sex with a geeky techno nerd. What world are we living in? Are we inside the television? Is that what happened? Was there a Twilight episode like 40 years ago that nobody realised was actually like a magic spell and it switched dimensions? And now that guy who used to be in the Twilight Zone is actually living in the real world, and the rest of us are all stuck in the Twilight Zone episode.
Well, we are under a spell, aren't we? We said this, we're under a psychic attack. I'll say it again, a psychic attack. It's been doing this since March. And yeah, and now we're into mid-November. To
make mention of that in maybe less of a, you know, joking fashion, but just talking about the Boris and isolation thing. I tried to set up the room a little bit earlier tonight so I could have a chat with Gary, because obviously he has to log off early now because the internet cafe shuts earlier because of the curfew currently in Barcelona. So, you know, please don't forget that, you know, the shit that's happening in the UK, other similar stuff is happening in other European countries, blah, blah, blah. But it gave me the chance to chat with him for a bit. And he made the point, this is very, very appropriate and relevant. Boris is most likely going into isolation to add justification and weight to the current narrative that the system is pushing through their propaganda, that the vaccine, when we get it, because more than likely you're going to get it soon, folks, is going to be needed on a regular basis because your body's immune system, the process of creating the T cells that basically create like a permanent record in your system that knows how to defeat that virus, that particular illness, your T cells won't be able to keep that memory for long enough. So you're going to probably need the vaccine every several months, 6-7 months. And as an example, folks, remember Boris got the illness right back near, earlier in the year before the lockdown and all this shit, and now he's got it again. So you see how that works, yeah? It reinforces that narrative that they're currently pushing, that even when we get the vaccine, don't think you're only ever going to have it once and that's it, you're done with. No, it's going to be at a minimum every single year, and highly likely it's going to be multiple times per year. And certainly if you are an essential worker or somebody in a critical position, or you've got a critical illness that they deem needs protecting, something like that, you will be getting it multiple times per year. So beyond the just ridiculous jokiness, the absolute reverse comedy environment that we're now living in, that's just one example of the manipulation, the psychological manipulation, the psychic attacks. Yeah. Because that is a large element of how they're doing this. Currently, our media is being absolutely bombarded with what I'll simplify to call the anti-vaxxer campaign. Right? Back in the day, there never used to be a thing called anti-vaxxer. There were people who would speak out against vaccines or question the abilities of vaccines or the claims around vaccines, blah, 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 blah. But they were never sort of corralled and labeled into a compartmentalized box. But in recent times, they have been. Certainly this has only taken place within the last few years. And now that gives the system the opportunity to attack them as a singular demographic. And it's even now, this is why they create these kind of compartmentalizing labels to put people in. Now, it doesn't matter if you are somebody who is inclined to say, well, yeah, I accept the majority of vaccines work, but I'm just a little bit concerned that this new one is being rushed and we don't really have enough good science to back it up. So therefore, I would rather wait a little bit, thank you. I'm not saying I definitely don't want it, but I'd rather wait until there's more evidence, more testing, that kind of... No, you say something like that, or you ask that kind of question, you're in the anti-vaxxer box. And now you're in that box, you will experience what it's like to be oppressed by the media propaganda machine.
And that's all you're getting. That's all you're getting, Cookie, at the moment. Just story after story. This Moderna's this new one. Apparently is 94.5% effective. Trial show.
So it's like an one of them version of the PCR test, because that's 94% inaccurate. So.
Yes. So it's and then it's just seen headline after headline going all around, all the mainstream regarding vaccine and the finding of the vaccine, the cure, the magic pill, and then once you've all got it, you can then go to back to your concerts and to whatever, but you all have to prove you've had a vaccine. Yep. You all have to.
That is a very good.
That's happening as well. That is happening. Yeah,
I'd put it in my notes. That's one of the most. To me, it's one of the most concerning things that's been put out this week. There's a lot of shit happened this week, but one of the most concerning indicators was a private company making a very direct and upfront, blatant statement of no jab, no concert tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm paraphrasing a little bit what they said, but they did say it quite directly in their statement. We will be requiring people to prove that they've either had a test to show they're COVID negative, or to prove that they've had a vaccine when it becomes available. So in other words, that's a private company that doesn't exactly totally monopolize, but it's certainly got a massive monopoly over the trade of tickets to social events, concerts.
Yeah, those big ones like Ticketmaster are all adopting it. And once they adopt that new format to go and see an artist or whatever, even a movie, even a cinema, you go to the movies, you have to prove that you have had, your jabs. You've had your vaccine. And if you can't, then you won't be able to go. Yeah, you can't prove it. Do you get a refund? I doubt it. you know, because apparently you can buy your tickets, but you've got to go through all this process afterwards before they'll let you in. So you've got to prove, you know.
I'm not sure if they're denying refunds with the airline industry, but I know in the example of the airline industry that they'll sell you a ticket, but if you go into a country that requires a COVID test before you're allowed entry, that COVID test has to be done within 72 hours of your departure.
Yeah.
And if it shows negative, then obviously you can't go. And I don't know. I haven't looked to find out the info, or
I mean,
I
positive.
haven't heard anyone mention it. Whether do you get a refund on your ticket, or is it basically a tough shit, you failed the test kind of thing? But that alone, you know, that's another one of the supposedly private business industry sectors implementing a process that has no legislation to be based on. And this is what I've been shouting for however many months now, certainly near enough the whole of this year.
Yeah.
The government doesn't need to create a piece of legislation and then on the 9 a.m. news the next day tell everyone in the UK, oh, it's now law that you have to have a COVID test to do anything. No, the industries, the businesses will implement it. Yeah, they don't need to actually have a piece of legislation in place. If they all start doing it, or near enough all of them, certainly the big monopolies, the big platforms, they all start doing it, what choices are you left with as a society? Yeah, it's like the fucking exemption labels. Yeah, this is something that I'm saying this deliberately, and I'm doing it as a joke. Yeah, this is just a sarcastic joke. But the little badges that they have psychologically manipulated people into wanting to have, or feeling that they have to have, because if they don't walk around with their little badge on, other members of the public will attack them. And that has literally happened, both physically and verbally. You get attacked if you walk around not wearing a mask or not wearing your little badge. Yeah. That is the psychological manipulation of the government here in the UK. Simple as that, yeah? But that principle, that acts as a symbol of you being an ally to their narrative. So they've allowed the companies to do this. Yeah, you can get the little things online. You can either download one and print it out, or you can pay for one to be sent to you through the post, yeah? But it has as much validity as this. It is not a doctor's certificate. It is not a medical certificate. It is not even an official certificate from the government that is telling you that you're a bad person if you don't follow the rules and wear the mask or carry your badge. But it's not official. Yeah, so you're doing it completely voluntarily. But by putting that symbol around your neck, you are subliminally making a tacit agreement to their narrative. So you are actually supporting their narrative.
Well, they're expecting people to then step up and get vaccinated then, aren't they? Because they'll be so, you know, that's what they're relying on.
Then you won't need to wear your lanyard. You're subject, those people who choose to wear that lanyard are subject to the same psychological pressure that they'll put on everybody else when they're told, oh yeah, now there's a vaccine, so if you don't want to wear your mask anymore, just go and get your vaccine, you won't have to wear your mask anymore. They'll say the same to the people who claim exemption and are walking around wearing a lanyard. They'll say, you don't want to feel that stigma of having to walk around with a lanyard, get the vaccine and then you can take it off because you've had the vaccine.
I think everyone will go 2 fingers to the vaccine. That's my thought on it.
I do think there's a hell of a lot more revelation of how the general populace is starting to turn against that narrative over this week. When I was out and about, most everywhere was near enough as busy as it usually is. I wasn't exactly driving this week because, like I mentioned the other week, my vehicle's off the road, but when I was in the car with my nephew and we were, going about, there's just as much traffic on the road. So I think a lot more of the population this time has said, lockdown? it's a part of why I put in the subtitle the final lockdown.
Yeah.
Because I think we have, maybe earlier than they were expecting, we've reached that frustration barrier that was described in that lockstep scenario, where it said, like, eventually the public get dissatisfied with the level of authoritarianism and start to push back. I think we've already reached that barrier. We've already passed that Rubicon. Yeah. And a lot of the public are going, lockdown, lockdown. Fuck your lockdown. Yeah, I'll wear the mask because you've just to go along to get along. Yeah, I'll do that, but I'm not fucking locking down again.
Yeah. Next stage is just take the masks off en masse. That would be good, wouldn't it? Throw them down.
And you know, we've said this repeatedly all along. If you choose to wear a mask, if you feel that's in your benefit for whatever that's your choice. Yeah, if you want to do that, you do that. But to then turning around and saying everybody else must do the same, no. So that's where your rights end as an individual when you start trying to do that shit. Yeah. And I don't mean they will be removed from it. Just means that sort of you do not have the authority to mandate that everybody else must also wear a mask. No, sorry. And if you don't individually have the authority to do it, nobody else does. Whether they're wearing a little badge on their head or a royal cloak or a white coat and a lab clipboard, you know, a lab coat and a clip. No, they do not have the authority to tell you that you must do that thing.
They'll put lots of propaganda out there to convince you have to, mind you. That's the thing, you see. That's what's working really well. Or to
trick you.
Or to trick you, yeah. And that's where, again, this, you know, people sharing information, people's awareness is rising about stuff. You know, that's all positive, you know, and we won't let them, you know, get to us in that way. Because if you can see the truth or little chinks of light coming in, you think, hang on a second. You know, you're not so, you know, thinking this is it. You know, these guys have got total control, and, you know, no, because the information has been spread so far and wide, even though they try and censor it all and shut channels down.
Exactly.
It's still too many leaks, too many leaks out there. You know, there's people are sharing still, so it's good.
That's what I was doing, my usual fucking trying to boil in on you again. Sorry, but that's what I was going to say. The very fact that they're shutting people down is an indicator that people are turning against what they're doing, what they're saying. Because they're having to now run around all over the place saying that's not allowed, that's not allowed, that's not allowed, that's not. And I can't remember who it was. One of the politicians, the guys did mention this in Skype before we were starting up, putting forward a proposal that we now need further restrictions on the media so that anti-vaxxer content and disinformation and all that kind of shit can be shut down.
I mean, the truth. The truth can be shut down again, or freedom of speech. And
I mean, that's referencing the kind of virtual or hacktivist meme warfare content, information warfare content.
Or a balanced argument, you know.
To connect also into the physical reality element, this week saw a lot more of the heavy, over-the-top police crackdown. Some quick examples, because I know we could, you know, spend a whole episode just talking about each one. There was Piers Corbyn getting arrested.
Yes.
The young woman, UK Column did good coverage of this today in their episode today, if people want to check that out. The young woman getting arrested, I think it was in Bristol, while she was in the middle of talking to the crowd. And the crowd did exactly what I think, anyway, in my opinion, exactly the right thing, because they linked arms and they tried to form a barrier around the girl so that the police couldn't get to her to arrest her. But unfortunately, there wasn't really enough people there. Yeah, there needed to be at least twice as many people to stop the cops being able to get in and grab her and drag her out. Then there was the gym owners who'd been trying to keep their gyms running, their businesses running in Liverpool and other places as well, I think, had joined in. Some of those guys got arrested this week. The tattooist who, if you look at this kind of information, you might be aware of this. He was standing up in a common law fashion, you know, using the common law to say, I'm not consenting to your your so-called mandates and your bullshit from the propaganda and whatever. And of course, the cops come back the next day and just walk in and arrest him. And this is the thing, folks. There's no interaction from the police to the alleged perpetrators that they're going for. They don't come in and say, we're here to advise you that, you're breaking this particular statute or act or law. No, they just come in mob-handed, lay hands on those people, arrest them, and put them in a van. That is a police state.
Yeah. And the Piers Corbyn arrest was the same, wasn't it? That whether he's dragging people off,
mob-handed.
Yeah, to get to him. It was just like that.
That's why I put the subtitle, the sort of info box subtitle this week is Ingsoc risen from the final lockdown. Because I think now the general populace is really starting to get it, because now the system has been pressured, pushed back against, to the point that they have to resort to revealing their blatant tyranny. Again, I've been saying it since I fucking started doing this shit. The example as set by many people over the centuries, but a good example is Gandhi and the non-aggressive, not passive, but peaceful protests, where it's not violent, you just stand your ground, and if they're going to arrest you, they arrest you. Yeah, but it's the disobedience, civil disobedience, that makes the system reveal itself for what it truly is. Tyranny by violent force.
Aggression on the people was what they're showing. Aggression, pushing, shoving, rugby tackling old ladies in the park. Jesus Christ. Years ago, I'd say that as a laugh, it's whatever, as a joke, you would see that, and it's like, that's happening. It's like you're seeing crazy shit going down in some places. I've seen loads of clips and videos and stuff being shared around, and it's shocking, really, what you're seeing, really, on the whole, when you see it all.
The gym owner, I saw the video on Jesse's channel the other night. I'd been watching or listening to his podcast from last week, and he'd put up this other short clip. And I was like, what's that? He's talking about the situation in Liverpool. And it turned out it was the clip of that gym owner where him and his wife were just walking down the road, and the squad, and it was like multiple vans, multiple policemen, women, cops, stopping everybody. Like there was like every 5 feet there was somebody up against the wall being interviewed by a copper or being, held there or whatever.
Yeah,
and
questioning.
I don't know his name, I'm sorry, the gym owner guy, him and his wife are walking along, and she starts recording it. He's saying to the coppers, like, what's going on here? We're just walking. And it ends up with the coppers, like several of them, 5 or 6 coppers, all trying to lay hands on him and get him on the floor, do all the usual, shit.
Yeah.
And he's standing there, so I'll go down in a minute, mate. It's like, fucking nice one. Yeah, I know. It's not a good thing that we're ending up in a situation where, yes, there's going to be that kind of shit happen. And similar with the badges, the exemption badges. I'm not saying to people that you shouldn't wear it because you don't want to get in shit with the arseholes out there that are going to start abusing you. I get it, yeah? There's a lot of twats out there that are so saturated with fear from the propaganda that they see you as a literal mortal threat. So they get angry with you because they're scared of you potentially causing them to get the illness. And then you get the arseholes who are the Stanford prison experiment personalities. They revel in the chance to authoritize your ass. Yeah, they want to wave their authority in your face and subjugate you because you're not following the rules. Yeah. They're the little twats that will abuse somebody because they're not wearing their little label. So I get it that some people either can't deal with that kind of situation. Maybe they've got a disability that means, if that kind of shit happens, it's going to really do them harm. They need that kind of protection, from the arseholes.
Yeah. But showing people what's really going on, though, doesn't it? It awakens people to the real tyranny around them. That's the seeing today now.
For those that can, making your stand, whether that be physical or psychological, metaphorical, Making your stand means that at some point you're going to encounter that kind of situation. You try and keep calm. Yeah. Try and remember that the main reason most people will be coming at you in that fashion is because they're scared. That's it. They've been frightened by the propaganda to such a degree that they see you as a danger. But not standing up to it means we're not going to get any further than this. This is the line.
Yeah.
Now that this thing has revealed itself fully, near enough fully, it certainly revealed that resort to physical violence, tyrannical method that they resort to. Yeah. So now I know people will say that's just because that's what you think, Cookie, but I know some people would argue the point, but as far as I'm concerned, you cannot call it anything else now.
Just look at the evidence.
It is blatant. It is in your face day after day.
Yeah.
We've mentioned the kind of media control, the information control that they're trying to push. And that's why I wanted to add in, mention about the physical element. It's all demonstrating that this thing is a tyranny. It's a police state at the moment here in the UK. There's no other way to describe it. It certainly is not democracy, constitutional monarchy, or whatever the fuck else political bullshit label you want to try and put on it. They are making diktats that are not lawful, that even have immensely questionable legislative value. In other words, they don't fit in with the lawful ability of the statutes and acts and whatever. And that's not just some tinfoil hat saying that. It's people like Lord Sumption pointing this thing at it directly in his commentary. He's calling it for what it is. He's saying this is not lawful. This is dictatorial. In other words, a dictatorship. There is no other way to describe it. But that very revelation of the beast, the revealing of just exactly what it is so obvious now for people to see, means more people are seeing it for what it is. So more people are realizing that they need to make a stand in some way, even if it is just a symbolic way, by not putting a label on themselves. If somebody tries to start a conflict with you, just walk away, go somewhere else. The system knew the people working in places like Spy B, the Nudge Unit, the Sage team. They knew that there would be the creation of individual conflict in the general populace because of things like the differentiation between those who wear the mask and those who don't. They knew that would create literal fights between people in a supermarket or in the streets. And that's why they did it. They want that to happen because that is the psychological, the psychic attack pressure to try and force you to conform.
Using fear tactics all the time.
You want the torment to stop? Put on the mask, take the vax. Then we'll stop tormenting you. That's the methodology of an outright psychopathic abuser.
And those who are watching those shitty TV shows you mentioned before, yes, you're under a spell. You've got to snap out of it quick, please.
There's one in particular which I've mentioned a few times. And I like to dip in and out of it every so often to get kind of like a gauge of the perception molding. But I call it fuck all box. I think people know what I'm referring to, It's a TV show about supposedly the general public watching TV shows. So it's a TV show where you as the viewer watch other people watching other TV shows.
To get your reaction.
How
bad it's got.
It has grown out of that internet voyeurism of people liking to see other people's reactions. And I could talk at length about how that is we've often talked about the kind of destruction of the family unit. In a similar fashion, that kind of culture weapon, because it is a cultural weapon, is used to destroy your emotional independence.
Yeah.
Because you don't learn emotional intelligence from your parents or peer group around you. You learn it by going on the internet and looking up person reacting to whatever kind of situation, and you look and you watch their emotions. Yeah, you watch young children and see how they watch adults around them. Yeah, and I've talked about this before. It's that kind of epigenetic environments. Yeah, we learn a lot of our being through emulating the others we see around us and the environment around us. So that kind of cultural weapon is about destroying people's emotional intelligence, making them externalize that element of themselves to a outside expert.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just thinking the adult kids thing, you know, like adults who've got, you know, like kids really.
Kidults.
Kidults.
Infantilization. Most, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the government propaganda now is targeted at that kind of infantilized thinking mind. And this is not to put people down. This is just what I feel is stating a reality.
Well, I could say watching that, that show I watched, it confirms it to me, because I haven't, like I say, subjected myself to that kind of abuse for a long time. You know, going to watch the TV show and thinking, that confirms everything, because I can see not what, you know, you think, what is this shit?
That fuck all box, man. That thing made me laugh out loud more than once. And not because of the supposed little comedy setups that they do, because that show is supposedly a reality show. But if you're not naive enough to believe that, you know, TV produced programming is a real, genuine reality show,
it's not contrived at all,
edited and to a certain degree scripted and whatever. So they're
edited,
making their little sort of jokey setups in the show itself. But I was laughing out loud at some of the absolutely ironically dumb things that some of the people were saying. Like, especially when it comes to things like where they show them news clips about the COVID situation and whatever. And some of the crap that comes out of them, to me, that's informative from the point of view of it reveals, one, what are the programmers trying to insert into the narrative here? So that indicates the sort of planned agenda that gets passed down the compartmentalized tree to the people that put together that actual program. And also what is actually bouncing around inside the minds of those people that are supposedly the general public. You know, what are they thinking as they react to what's being presented to them? And it can be, if you can watch it in that kind of fashion, if you can be a bit objective and try to, I'm being like the fucking science lab, expert. I put my lab coat on when I sit and watch it, and I'm making notes. And I just watch it, but it makes me laugh. Some of the bullshit that they push through that program and try to claim, hey folks, look, this is what everyday people watching the TV think about the world at the moment. Bullshit, is it? Absolute fucking utter bullshit. Is that what the general public think about the situation at the moment? I've met a few people that, don't exactly agree totally with me when I talk about the system and whatever. But the majority of them are pissed off in one way or another. And the majority of them do not wholeheartedly accept everything that's been pumped out via the propaganda. They might accept some of it. They might have been tricked by some of it, but they're still concerned about other elements of it, such as things like potentially mandatory vaccines or the non-parental consent vaccination of their children in schools, things like that. They've got reservations and questions about the situation. They don't just swallow it wholeheartedly in the way that it's sort of presented on that show.
Yeah. The people I know, and I'm sure people listening as well, the people you know, a lot of them are the same. I don't know anybody who's had it either. I don't know anybody. I'm not saying people haven't got ill, but it's just like there's not that sort of, just seems like nobody's I know's got ill. So I don't know if anyone's saying. I know people have said, "Oh, I know loads of people" or whatever, but fair enough. But for me, I don't know anyone. And
I know a lot of people,
even on the internet, people who you know on here, you know, on the people who come in and out, you know, it's like, you know, it seems like, as we said before, they've taken the common flu, cold, whatever, it's morphed into another seasonal flu, whatever it is, and just turned it into a pandemic, and off we go. And that's what it's been like ever since, and turned it into a Chinese virus or whatever, and called it whatever, and created the fear. This time last year, the fear was bubbling away, if you remember. I think it was around about sort of November, December, those first stories about something coming out of China was happening. So
I've got to just find a particular picture to screen share, because when I just glanced in at the chat, sorry, I haven't been like reading down through the chat yet. I did sort of say a quick hello earlier, but I'll come back to the chat in a moment. But Foxtrot mentioned, put it in the chat, and I thought, yeah, I'll show that. I've shown it a few times before, but it's highly appropriate. That's from the Buddha, Siddhartha Buddha. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it, not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense.
Yeah.
If your truth is really a truth, you don't need to force it onto somebody else. You don't need to force them to repeat it like a mantra or a dogma. If it's truth, though, hopefully eventually that person will see that it is truth. But you don't need to force it on them, and you don't need them to agree to validate it. If you know that it's truth, then it's truth. Whether they validate it or not doesn't matter. It's still truth. As Gandhi put it, the truth, even in a minority of one, is still the truth. But the system likes us all to be arguing about who's right, who's wrong, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. When it comes down to it, it's usually them. Almost always it's them that's the actual bad guy. They're just hidden behind layers of shadow, and puppetry. You're fighting the shadow of the puppets that they're waving in front of you.
Yes. Well, we haven't mentioned the elections yet over in America. I haven't really paid much attention to.
You mean the recounts?
Yeah, the recounts or whatever. I haven't really been looking at much for a few days, really. I've
left it alone for a couple of days as well, because at the moment it's hit that kind of lag. They've got to wait for the recounts to finally be done in, I think there's still a couple of states where they're sort of dragging their feet over the counting the numbers up and stuff. And then we've got to wait for the process of legislation for all the accusations of fraud and whatever to be brought forward and turned into cases or not cases.
Yeah. And it's not till the college electorate, is it, declare it, or it's officially declared sometime, I think in December, I think it is.
Which if there is any proven in a court truth to some of the allegations of
then it
fraud,
won't be called.
Then it will probably be put on pause, or they'll do a revote or something. I don't know. It could end up getting very silly.
I mean, remember, it's not the inauguration until the 20th of January, so it's quite a way off, and they go through this process every time they have a new guy or a simple, it's only 2 terms they can serve, isn't it? But before they can do the change, officially in that sense, a bit of swear him in again. I'm not sure if an existing president, if he got voted in again, just carries on. I'm not sure what happens there, but I know he got to go through that ceremony still on the 20th. That bullshit thing. Yeah.
And as well,
whether Biden makes it or not, sort of the question.
Well, a couple of things where I'd forgotten, however long ago, but I'd forgotten the word Biden is also the name given to the description of something to carry water in. And it just occurred, like I did the episode last week about drawing water. And trying to sort of use in a metaphorical way that example of, drawing on the energy to give you the energy to deal with the shit they're throwing at you. But it occurred to me during the week, saying Biden, that's like a little thing, it's like a homemade sort of water carrier, not exactly a water skin, but it's something else similar to that can hold water.
Or bidet.
It probably does come from the French, actually. Thinking about it, the etymology of it is probably from the French.
Yeah.
But it just occurred to me, Biden, hang on, that's like something to carry water in. And this guy is trying to carry the water of their current, the global cabal narrative.
Yeah.
He's the guy they want in to carry their water and hand it out to the people. Yeah.
The
That was a bit of
tainted water, the poisoned water.
A bit of a
Poisoning the well.
synchronistic connection there that just popped up to me during the week. Sometimes that's how these things sort of reveal themselves. I'm not exactly trying to think about it, like trying to calculate something. I'm just doing something else, and all of a sudden the idea will go, hey, did you realize this? Did you remember this?
It's
That's
still
that
ongoing, isn't
creative
it?
element.
Yeah. But still,
imagination is more important than knowledge, because without imagination, you can never, ever create new knowledge. All you can ever do is repeat knowledge that's already there. So absolutely, imagination and creativity is far more important than just dogmatic repetition of already known knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. And they're trying to crush that, kill that off even out there, with the way that they've, they're going to limit people going to see entertainment, whatever it is, artists, performers.
No jab, no ticket.
Yeah, this sort of thing, and that's been a big thing. I don't know how that, like I say, we mentioned that about the fact that you need, to prove you've been vaccinated. I mean, let's hope that when we get to the spring, and these vaccines, I mean, again, it's all propaganda coming out of the media. They're not. I mean, most people are going to go for anything. They know it's 5-10 years even before something is tested thoroughly before it's released on the public, and then maybe 1 in 100,000 maybe get damaged by it or something. Is that kind of figure correct? Maybe or so it's that roundabout that or whatever. But they know there's a risk factor, and it's low enough to release it to the public without too many people, getting ill, because then that would raise alarms.
Analysis,
yeah, exactly. So to me, it's just propaganda at the moment. They won't come up with nothing. They're not going to, because most people wouldn't take it, knowing just that alone.
I'd mentioned 2 other quotes as well that I feel are relevant to that. One is the Churchill quote, "Lies, damned lies, and statistics." Because that kind of justification that the system puts out is based on them presenting statistics to the public to demonstrate that their magic medicine only kills certain numbers of people. And then I'd also mention the Stalin quote, "An individual death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths are a statistic." So what they rely on is that, one, most of the public don't even know there's a vaccine injury appeal process. There's a vaccine damage court where you can go and make your case, and if they agree with you and go, yes, your child or your relative was injured by the vaccine, here's a compensation payment. Most of the public don't know about that, and at the same time, most of the public are unaware in general of the kind of deaths per number demographic statistics. So it's like most people wouldn't have considered the fact, and I know I ranted about this however many weeks ago, when they talk about COVID killing something like 0.05% of elderly people, and children are 99.996% not at risk to it, then statistically the child is more likely to be struck and killed by lightning than they are to be catching the illness and dying from it. Most of the general populace isn't aware of those kind of statistics, and when the system throws up statistics like fucking propaganda vomit, which they do a lot, like Bojo's announcement with the Chuckle Brothers, where there was like half an hour of chart after chart after chart, just basically vomiting bullshit statistics onto the public's mind. And then we need a lockdown because vomit.
Bullshit.
They've always done that. The BBC is that outlet where they'll quite happily push massaged numbers, sexed up dossiers of statistics to sell a politicized narrative. So I thought those 2 quotes, just references from history, just to demonstrate that, please see the same patterns, the same methodology being repeated again and again and again. Why? Because unfortunately, up until maybe arguably recently, with a lot of the pressure that's been put on recently, a lot of the general public are not aware of most of this stuff, or even if they are, they don't really care. As long as it's not them or their children, they don't care. So this stuff has gone on again and again and again, and the same methods keep getting implemented by the system because the track of history proves that they work, because unfortunately the majority of the public don't care as long as it's not them. Yeah, this is why now this global coup effect is such a far-reaching extent of how much it gets into everybody's lives. That means the majority of the public now is going to feel an effect from this. So they can no longer have that psychological, spiritual ignorance defense of, oh, I'm still all right, so it doesn't matter what's happening down the road. Yeah, they won't have the opportunity for that, because now this shit is going to be knocking on their door as well. Now they feel, oh, you mean I'm going to get hit, but I'm going to lose. Oh, right, I better stand up then. Why isn't everybody else standing up with me? Why isn't anyone defending my rights? Maybe because you didn't give a fuck about anyone else in the first place, mate. That's why. Yeah, that's the way that kind of tribal mindset works. Were you adding anything into that process, that reciprocal process of you help the tribe helps you? You know, this is not about collectivism and communism in the politicized bullshit sense. This is about, like I referred to right at the start of this show, you know, how did a bunch of humans, a bunch of men and women, you know, how did we bring down woolly mammoths? Can't even say it. How did we do that? Simple, because we worked together. Yeah, it required the people working together to achieve a greater goal than they could achieve individually. And that greater goal that they managed to do as a group gave them more benefits in the long run. So they had a higher chance of survival. Their children had a higher chance of survival. So their mindset became predominant amongst all the other subspecies that were competing out there. You know? And that's even if you take all the academic history as given. Yeah. On that kind of note, I want to mention, and I will put a link in the chat room, but please, for people watching this video back as a repeat, you know, as a recorded video on my channel after the live broadcast, please be aware that the live chat room from last week's broadcast has still not been published by Google under the video. So you can't actually access the chat from last week. And in the chat from last week, as we have been in the habit of doing so for a long time, there were a lot of links to the kind of content we were talking about, you know, links to articles and video references and, oh, no, stop that, clicking the wrong button. You know, stuff we were talking about in the actual episode, things like that. You know, that's the way this kind of stuff usually goes, people sharing links to other things. But yeah, you can't access that chat at the moment. So all those good links we were putting in there, you can't get to. So just please be aware of that. If you're watching this back after the broadcast, so you're wondering, well, what's he talking about? I don't see any chat room, so there is no links. And also for people who do share, like Tazzie's always sharing great links for us in the chat. You know, she's always helping people by passing on those links of the information, like we've often talked about, the, you know, the actual links to the government websites where you can find out what the supposed laws are, the legislation, and what your exemptions are, and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, they're now being blocked by Google. But I put a link in to what is, I think, as far as I remember, it's the very first video on my channel. It wasn't the very first video I did. Around that time in 2011, because of stuff that was going on in this kind of internet YouTube environment, I wanted to cut my ties and just move on from some of the previous stuff. So some of the videos that had been on my channel, I took them down, and I just left some of them. One of them is this one, and there's some others, I think, from the Occupy protests and stuff like that. So that's a video from 2011. I'm not going to play it on here now because it's about 15 minutes long. And it was, I think Simon, shout out to Simon. Yeah, Simon Ball watched the video and left a comment underneath it. So thanks, mate, for making the effort to go all the way back and watch some of that stuff from that long ago, and leave a little comment there as well. But when I saw his comment come up, I thought, what video is that? I know it's one of the early ones on my channel. I went and rewatched it again, and I had a rough idea of the content because, it's my stuff, but I couldn't remember exactly what I said in it. So I thought, I'll watch it again, refresh my memory. And I sat there thinking, like, that is almost literally verbatim, word for word, near enough to the stuff I've been saying repeatedly this year and in other episodes prior. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the last 9 years, certainly since that video, I've been trying to make similar points to people, and I've approached it in multiple different ways, but it's an example of that repetition of their patterns. Their methods don't really change much, haven't really, not at the core, at the foundation of them. Yeah, they've been adjusted to match modern technology, and they've been more empowered. Their weapons have become sharper thanks to these modern technologies that allow them to burrow through people's psychology on an individual level, because they can get straight to you as an individual, wherever you are, because you're walking around with the thing in front of your face. It's like you got the propaganda speaker following you around everywhere you go, putting it into your head all the time.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so many people I know are so addicted to that as well. It's time to break the spell of that as well. That nonsense, because it just seems to be like they've pumped that in through the 90s and the noughties, if you like, that narcissism type thing, especially with the phones and the pictures and, everybody getting really, narcissistic, in a word, or becoming more, more interested in their own little world, and that's it. And then how you project that world, and it has to be perfect, it has to be, good. And then it allows people to, in effect, show off and brag, and all that stuff as well, or keeping up to date with everything. You've got to do this. It's almost like an extra stress you've built in, but it's an addictive one. And it's time to break the spell of that, because there's so many people that I know do that all the time, and it just find it frustrating sometimes, with all the ways they can record, film, do whatever. You don't even know they're doing it half the time. And then you end up on a bloody some of the chat thing or something or whatever, or you just this is what happens. So people need to sort of stop the addiction to that, because it has really got out of hand now. I've been putting my phone away more than ever, and not looking at it all day, and just look at if someone contacted me or whatever, and that would be it. But not this constant having to look at it all the time. It's something that we lived without it, so we maybe have a bit more balance in how we use it, whereas you're born into it. It's been around a while, as we know. Just think that's the way it is, that's how it goes. And if you take my phone off me, it's my human right to have my phone. It's it's that kind of thing. They're born with it. It's like a device, and it's a spell. It's a really bad spell. It's really taken the, like you say, it gets you directly. You are the commodity, you are the product, or whatever they call it. You are being targeted individually, and your digital profile being built, and they'll know what to target you with, what to show you, even be able to tell what mood you're in by you posting your selfie snaps.
Because the data is the new oil that this new economy is based on.
Exactly. Yes, and we've said this for a while. Yeah. This is the new
gas masses, the new cyber reality economy.
Yes. So I'm just ranting on about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true.
And it's that addictive quality of in particular social media, but it can be applied to various elements of the media. And it can also, of course, be pointed out that this kind of stuff is psychologically addictive.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's not like your muscles require that you look at social media. Yeah, it's not addictive in the way other chemical agents are to the body.
Yeah.
But it can create a addictive psychological hook in the same manner as gambling.
Mm.
Yeah, or addictions to other things that are not necessarily chemically addictive, but can become a psychological crutch, or addictive in that kind of psychological fashion.
Yeah.
But arguably, the devices we now have available to us allow us 24/7 connection, which the system really wants us to do. Yeah, they're quite happy if people are attached to their device 24/7. That does create a chemical addiction through long-term use, again in the same fashion as gambling addiction, because it can reprogram the neural structure in your brain based on the chemical rewards that you're getting from that gambling gamification style reward process, the feedback, psychological feedback that you experience from interacting with that social media. Yeah, and I'm not going to talk at length at this. There's plenty of evidence out there now to show this. Yeah, even as we pointed out when it happened at the time, over the last few years, when some of the whistleblowers have come out and said, yes, we deliberately designed it to be addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, folks, stop ringing that bell of cognitive dissonance in your head and listen. The guys are admitting it to you that they did that deliberately to make you addicted.
Yes.
What do you do when you're addicted? You have to take a break from that addiction and wean yourself off it. So in this current climate in particular, I think it's highly beneficial for people to do that kind of thing. Yeah, I limit how long I spend on the kind of social media elements of stuff. Yeah, I don't log in to YouTube 24/7. I'll usually spend a few hours, because keeping track of stuff the way I do means that, that's what I do. That's my chosen way of approaching things. Yeah. But I don't walk around with a mobile device constantly checking my social media feeds and my status and the number of views and likes and shit like that. No, I take note of those things in the YouTube, what do they call it? The dashboard thing where you do your channel stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do take a note of that kind of stuff. Yeah, because it's relevant to a lot of what we're talking about often. But I'm not hooked in on the media attachment. And I know I've said this quite a few times in the past. And, this is sort of furthering from what you were saying, or adding on to what you were saying. They know that if they introduce these devices and that kind of environment to people at a young enough age, it becomes internalized to them to such a degree that they see it as an add-on sense. I've described it before as it's like the technological usurpation of your natural sixth sense, which is via your pineal gland, which is your body's ability to sense magnetic fields around you, which is a lot of what is being disenfranchised and cut off by various methods of the system. But that interceding of the technological device of giving you a kind of technological telepathy, that is a way of cutting you off from everybody else. And, we've all discussed this kind of stuff before at length, the kind of, what do they call it, atomization of people into their little narcissistic individual bubbles where they don't want to associate with other people. They don't see themselves as being part of any kind of community or even tribe or nation or anything. They're all just in their own little pocket universe. Yeah. And the system can adjust itself to suit that perfectly. So in effect, they've designed a technology that is a combination of hardware and software that is like an auto-adjusting matrix oubliette. An oubliette is basically a hole, a prison cell that you put people in and then you seal it up and walk away. Yeah, it's to forget about them. And what they've given people with a lot of this kind of setup is that ability to put yourself in a little matrix bubble that will constantly adjust its form to give you the force feedback required to keep you hooked into it. So you don't want to leave the bubble because you've got everything you need in this bubble around you. Yeah. Sorry, I'm ranting about it.
But yeah, I know it gets you, doesn't it? It's kind of evil.
The point I was trying to make is it is definitely beneficial to be able to turn it off. Yeah. And unfortunately for the younger generations, because they've grown up with it being there all the time, they are going through a process of internalization where, as far as they're concerned, it is like a natural right that they should be able to access their device 24/7 and be in contact with everybody else all the time. You know, they see it as normal life. Yeah, how could you have ever existed before this? Yeah.
Well, we thought that with the television, and we soon realized what that was. So
yeah,
there is
the same thing.
Opium.
Yeah, it's the same process. That television created the same kind of foot in the door. Yeah, in a psychological and psychic way, spiritual way. Put a foot in the door between you interacting with your own family, and instead your attention is drawn to the stories that are presented to you by the magic lantern in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just noticed Days has jumped back in the stream again. Hi, mate, you all right?
Nice one, Cookie. Hi, how you doing, guys?
Hi, Days.
Oh, good, mate.
I just and to offer my tuppence worth, you know, as I do.
Yeah, go for it. Huh?
Well, just a couple of points, though. Even to reiterate some of the things you were saying, I think it is important, as you point out, that the vaccine, it won't necessarily be enforced compulsory, but enforced through that sort of corporatism aspect you were on about, like you won't be able to work. You know, you don't need to take it, but if you don't, you won't be able to work, you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to do this, that, the next thing, you know. I think it's an attack on what it means to be human, you know, the freedom of movement, freedom of expression, etc. And it's an attack as well on the senses, you know. Poison yourself with your own carbon dioxide, restrict your breathing, you know. What sense is it they're going to come for next? Will it be the sense of sight, perhaps, that you won't be allowed out without your augmented reality glasses on, so that you can see the contract, the track and trace, the social distancing measures that are around you? It's not looking great at the moment.
I was thinking as well, ages ago, I can't remember how long ago it was, probably like more than a year ago, maybe even a couple, and we were talking about the kind of green agenda, and you made the point of how the carbon tax credit can be viewed in a kind of religious fashion, of it's like paying not a penance, oh man, what's it called, where you basically pay to get forgiveness. No, I can't think of it. I'll forget about it, and the phrase might come back to me, or somebody will put it in the chat room.
It's like a penitence for the original sin, you know.
Yes.
It's like it's as though you're born a cancer upon the earth, and you have to atone through it through these carbon taxes. I think what they want is they want total control over your carbon footprint, your physical footprint, and your digital footprint.
Yeah, but it came back to my mind again a few weeks ago, thinking about that principle of, well, they're getting people to willingly do potential harm to themselves via their carbon coming out, you know, that normally is expelled through the breath. And it made me think, in that connection to the carbon tax credit, and obviously they've been adding the green agenda into the COVID narrative and vice versa. You know, now the COVID is causing global warming, and you're causing global warming because you've got COVID. So they're winding those agendas together, and it just made me think about that principle of, are they sort of using the same methodology, the same psychology again, of getting people to in effect self-flagellate or punish themselves to prove that they believe the doctrine of the Church of COVID? Yes, if you look at it that kind of religious penitence fashion, then putting the mask on is like doing yourself a harm, self-flagellating, which means whipping yourself, to prove that you're a penitent, you know, you're obeying the doctrine.
They're looking for true believers, and I think a lot of this is designed not to make sense intentionally, in order to engender these true believers who will follow the prescribed narrative regardless of facts to the contrary. You know, it's like it's not enough to obey Big Brother. You've got to love Big Brother. You've got to blindly follow. You know, like regardless. 2 and 2. If they say 2 and 2 is 5, and 2 and 2 is 5.
If the latest coming out of Matt Hancock's, it says here, Britain has ordered 5 million Moderna vaccines, so 5 million people up for a Moderna jab. I think that's how you pronounce that, companies or whatever.
Yeah,
Moderna.
it is Moderna.
Yeah.
As I mentioned over the last couple of weeks, I think I'm quite happy to donate my dose of the vaccine to the members of the cabinet, Boris or
they can have it all.
Or hashtag vax them first.
Yes.
Yeah. They want the vaccine, then let them take it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just let our leaders should fight the wars first. You know, like get them in the ring, let them duke it out.
Yeah.
You were talking about you were a couple of things here, like the merging agendas, and you were talking about how the media are like sort of spoon feeding these kidults. It's to me, it's been a long, systematic dumbing down process, you know.
Yeah.
And we can see it through many aspects of culture. You can see it through the news, the politics, but for me, more through art and music. You know, like the music today that's been pushed, like the sort of hip hop culture and that. It's not a true hip hop culture. You know, like it's fucking anti music that's getting pushed these days. It's like look at what I've got. You've got nothing. You know, look at my bitches, my cars, my rings. We'll call a man a nigger. We'll call a black a nigger. We'll call a woman a bitch. You know, that's you just quartered the room. You know, that is social distancing in music form. You know what I mean? Like that to tie it in. I think that's why they went so hard on the intersectional identity politics before this great COVID talks, in order to smash up any unified resistance. You know.
Yeah, separation. They did as much as they could, didn't they, through everything over the last few years with, all the agendas they've played up until this.
Part of the biggest trick is, yes, there are differences between us all. So, and I can't remember who it was who said it, you know, the worst kind of malicious lie is always founded on a truth. Yeah, so they begin with a small truth or a very important truth about we are all similar in many ways. Yeah, we're all having a very similar experience of this reality and all the shit that goes along with it. But they want people to focus in a negative fashion on the differences between us all. Every difference has to be turned into a negative. It's never allowed to be a positive in any way whatsoever. You know, one thing, I know I've talked about this in the past in various ways, but I used to live in Birmingham in the Midlands in the UK. It is a place that's been renowned for quite a long time for its mixture of cultures, and a lot of it is Jamaican and Pakistani and Indian. And Birmingham is actually the birthplace of the balti, which is a particular type of curry creation. Yeah. And there's a lot of other curries and whatever. You know, the Asian community in Birmingham has been one of the world leading communities for bringing cuisine to the public, kind of thing. Yeah? But that mixture of culture would never ever have been available if we were all living within the projected globalized one world system where everything is all uniform from a technocratic blueprint. There would have been no curry for me to ever have experienced if there wasn't a different culture from somewhere else in the world, somewhere else on the planet that had that style of cuisine. If we were all exactly the same, living the same culture, you'd never have that experience of a difference. Yeah?
We're not able to do that anymore. That's cultural appropriation, you know. It's very on PC.
And the unfortunate reality that it doesn't matter where you go in the world, you will always, maybe not always, but you will highly probably encounter an arsehole. Yeah. Unfortunately, they're all over the place.
There's always one.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
So this kind of concept that all the arseholes only ever come from one particular ethnic group or one particular place somewhere in the world, or, you know, the other side of the hill where the bad people live. This is classically what the controllers, dictators, usurpers, whatever you want to call them, have used again and again and again. The classic Plato, the classic Plato quote of the dictator will always create some enemy somewhere so that his people will need a ruler. You know, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but hopefully you get the point. You know, it's now even more so than ever that people need to, I shouldn't say need, you know, you do what you want. I'm just trying to talk, you know, in a kind of general fashion. I'm not telling you what to do, but I do feel that this is this is a perfect opportunity. Fucking Klaus Blofeld Schwab. Like, I want to see him with the fucking white cat, and he keeps banging on about the Great Reset to bring the world together. But really, we already were together. We already have been together. We are together already. Yeah, the amount of similarities between us and the very reality that is currently being demonstrated is that the vast majority of people want to just live their lives, get along with each other if they can, and if they don't, they just let them do their thing down their end of the road, and I'll do my thing up this end of the road. And they don't want to all be attacking each other all the time. You know, that reality has only ever been created by the system when it uses force to try and push people violently into doing things that they don't want to do.
But then you've got the medical dictatorship, haven't you?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I want to show that quote.
I didn't know that, by the way. I just wrote that down, so I must be tapping into your energy field.
Picking up my vibes, man.
I am.
And big thanks, big shout out to Dino for setting up a new separate room for us where the guys are putting in all the memes and infographics and, you know, pictures and all the kind of good stuff that we like to screen share so often. And one of them is this one, a little clip from a recent editorial article. In other words, it was written by the editor of the BMJ, which is the British Medical Journal. I think a lot of the people who tune in to listen to us are probably already aware of this. But it is out there at the moment, folks. The article is getting shared rapidly. It's going somewhat viral already, considering it only come out like a couple of days ago, I think. Yeah, and this is from the editor of the BMJ, Kamran Abbasi. As far as I remember, when some of the guys showed his profile, he's a professor and a doctor and current editor, executive editor of the BMJ. This is his quote: "The medical political complex tends towards suppression of science to aggrandize and enrich those in power. And as the powerful become more successful, richer, and further intoxicated with power, the inconvenient truths of science are suppressed. When good science is suppressed, people die." End quote. Yeah, and that's, as I say, in the BMJ, British Medical Journal, which is a world-renowned journal for the medical industry trade sector. And he's the executive editor, and that's published in the public at the moment. So you add that on to, I mentioned him earlier, Lord Sumption. You know, he's put stuff out into the public that is directly calling the current situation in the UK a dictatorship. Even the so-called experts and bureaucrats within the system itself are starting now to realise that maybe they were on the wrong side of the historical fence, and they need to start planting their feet and standing their ground because they see that freight train coming their direction now. And they've started to realise how did Kissinger put it? Can't stay neutral on a moving train.
Well, I was going to say, Cookie, it's taken them this long to say this. It's just recently, is it? So, like you said, that you know, realizing there's something going on, and there's a, you know, as we know, they've suppressed a lot of other doctors, professors, epidemiologists, all these professionals from having their say, and you know, shut them down, and in some cases, you know, kick them out the NHS
and the general public as well.
Mm.
You know, because I know we're often referring to talking heads and bureaucrats and politicians and scientists, experts, blah 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 blah. But you know, it doesn't. Those kind of labels and academic nomenclature, you know, to be technical about it, they don't restrict a subject from being discussed by anyone. I've had that kind of philosophical argument with people before. It's like they'll say things like, "Oh, where's your qualification? You shouldn't be talking about shit like that because you ain't got the qualification." Fuck you, you twat. You dumb fuck. You've already sold your cognitive liberty to a system that told you you're a naughty boy. But no, it's like, yeah, they're starting to now come out of the woodwork and say it.
Good.
And, you know, we know this, you know, if you talk to the general public, a lot of the general public have already been saying this for a long time.
Yeah, well, this is the pushback, you see, is where it gets interesting, where you know, you're going to get, it's not just going to be Joe Blogs on the street saying it's all about, it's going to be these lot and others as well who are going to back this up, and that's where it's going to change.
I've got one
and
other
that's where I
link.
say he'll be running for the hills, you know, Boris. He's in isolation now. They've put him away for a bit. He's done enough damage. Him and Cummings and Princess Nutnuts, or whatever her fucking name is.
I'll share this link, but it is a really long link. I think that's simply because they've attached a capture anti-robot thing to it, basically, because I bet you his website is getting attacked like fuck at the moment. So please don't be put off by the fact that it's a long link and that you got to do a capture thing to look at it.
Oh, that's a long link. Jesus.
By the looks of it, Google's actually split the link up, so it might not fully work.
It's huge.
What the fuck? It's chopped it into like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. The other way of approaching it is
you're spamming your own chat, Cookie.
Yeah. Tazzy, can you time me out in the chat, please? I've been spamming the chat. If you go to last week's episode, which is season 4, episode 6, Patrick Nee, thanks Patrick, had posted a link that's there under that video. It's to the Bernicians website, or Bernician, however you want to pronounce it. The Bernicians website, which is www.thebernician.net. But it was an article he put up months ago in March that is a explanation of what is a virus, what do viruses do, how do they work, and they're potentially, and I'm only saying that to cover myself because I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff, so I can't say for definite one way or the other. It basically explains why the current claims for the contagion levels for this so-called virus can't really be scientifically true.
Aye. As far as I can make it out with one of these alternative, one of these doctors that were kind of against the bullshit was coming out and saying was that viruses are created within your own body at a cellular level, and they act as a soap or solvent in order to fight incoming pathogens. Therefore, a blanket vaccine, which is unique to our DNA naturally. So therefore, a blanket vaccine makes no sense. But I put my hands up and say I can determine the veracity of that because I don't have the experience or the understanding. You know?
Well, if you go by 2009, I think it was the swine flu, so-called epidemic, and they pumped out millions of vaccines, so-called, you know, for this, which I understand. Well, I don't think anybody took them, did they? I think they realised there was maybe it didn't work out the way they wanted it to.
No, I can't remember if they ever actually did roll it out or whether it was just offered in a kind of select, you know, to a select group of people.
Well, again, like we're seeing tonight, the propaganda, you know, them suggesting all these vaccines are being sold, they're stockpiling this, they're spending this, they're doing this. You know, it could all be, you know, like I say, them just, you know, again ramping up more fear for, you know, keep us where we are continually, you know, just keep us where we are. They ain't got no vaccine.
It's
you know.
straight out of 1984, though, the way they're trying to clamp down on like an alternative view here. You know, what it keeps coming back to me time and time again. What they're trying to do is equate an alternative view with psychosis or quotes hate. You know,
Yeah.
An alternative view must be viewed as psychosis or hate these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Turning
those-
yeah.
Sorry, just these two images go so well together. Yeah, talking about spending 130 million to fight anti-vaxxers. In other words, all the propaganda and censorship and the 77th Brigade and all that shit. And the irony, George Orwell lived here. And it's a big security fucking camera. Yeah, your big brother.
Just another couple of wee points here. You were talking about Biden, like how his name sort of sounded to you. I was thinking Biden, like Biden his time, you know. It's sort of funny how the vaccine turned up a day after Biden's projected win, you know. Not that I'm a Trump fan. I understand the Hegelian dialectic, but it's like it's just funny though, the timing. The other thing that I've got here is the dopamine hits from these ever scrolling social media feeds. They've consciously taken away like the break in them. You don't get to the end of the page; it just keeps on rolling. It's
forever.
Very much. I think it was Kip that first pointed this out to me. Very much like the gambling, the one-arm bandit machines.
Yeah,
where it's scrolling round and round. You know, maybe it's something to do with the way the eyes are processing that scrolling as well. It gets you into that sort of loop. You know,
that's what took me off Facebook about 3 years ago. I just thought I used to come in of an evening, sometimes go on that social media site, think I'd be there 10 minutes, and I'd be scrolling for 2 hours. And I thought this is what it would be like, and you could see that was you have to break off that, and that's when I come off it. I just logged out, and that was it. So it's to me, you've got to. It's such a powerful thing. It's a powerful brain chemistry going on there, and they know what they're doing. And like you said, they all admitted it anyway, didn't they? As you mentioned before, the CEOs come out, or ex-CEOs of these companies, and admitted that's what they were doing. And some of them didn't agree with it, but it was like, it's too late now.
That's why it's worth taking a break from it. If you can, like maybe you could build up into it. Obviously, everyone's different. There's no one-size-fit-all answer to the majority of this stuff that we're often talking about. There's no singular blueprint of how to escape the system and all that kind of shit. But maybe you can build up to it, turn it off for a little bit at a time, and build up the amount of time you have it turned off, or leave it at home when you go out. So I'm talking about like your phone, your mobile device, and eventually get to the point where it's not an internal conflict for you to say, right, I've had enough now, turn it off, or right, today I don't need to look at it at all. I'm not expecting any important messages. I'm going to do something else completely different. And that will help your biochemistry, your mental chemistry. It's not just about the psychology. It's that chemical connection. That's the weaning process. If you want, you can go cold turkey and just detach yourself from it for a few weeks. Probably 3 to 6 weeks would maybe reset your dopamine quite a bit. You can try other things as well, which we've talked about many times over the years. There's various herbal ways you can do that kind of thing. Having a little journey somewhere every now and then. I'm talking about a spiritual, psychological journey. Well, that can help detach you from that addictive connection to this stuff.
I was listening to this comedian Whitney Cummings the other night, and she was talking about how she's got an app on her phone which turns everything to black and white. So psychologically, it's less appealing for her to interact.
That's a good idea, man. Because definitely, it's like there is a kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's a kind of a softening effect that happens with the colorization of imagery. For example, if you go and look up some old black and white photographs from like turn of the century or from the 20s or 30s or something, yeah, I find anyway, so I don't want to project onto others, but I find that the emotional content of that imagery is much clearer and distinct in black and white. I can look at photographs of like Civil War soldiers in America. Yeah, they used to do the portrait photos. They'd be there with their uniform on, and you can see life experience on their face and in their expression. Whereas if you look at a colorized version of that kind of imagery, the emotional content and connection is a lot less. So maybe there's something about, like, obviously there's psychological color cues as well, that we're deep core coded to, such as yellow and black being like danger warnings, red being a danger warning, things like that. Yeah. Whereas if you remove that colorization, it allows your rational thinking to be more in control, rather than those emotional sub cues, you know, those cues that you're not consciously aware of catching you and drawing you in.
I'll tell you what, if it was that bear coming towards me, I wouldn't care if it was colour or black and white. I'd be fucking running in the other direction very quickly.
He just wants a hug, man. A hug and a taste of your lower intestines. That's all. Just a little nibble. Yeah. See, this is creativity, man. That's fun. It makes brilliant, ironic observation comedy of the world we live in, but that is such amazingly creative way of showing it. Yeah, you're not allowed to go down the park and feed the ducks, but you can feed the fucking commercial product. I think I said it earlier. Big thanks to Dino for setting this up, so it makes it easier for us to be able to flick through a lot of the really good memes and infographics to help convey a lot of this information.
Yeah.
Look at the eyes.
It
will be assimilated. Yeah. Well, this is, like I mentioned right at the start, I thought about calling this episode the comings and goings of Parliament. Yeah.
If that were true, eh? Oh.
And there is another one somewhere, like, shows what he's got in the box. I'm just going to flick through quickly. Thanks, folks, for tuning in to this week's edition. And thanks for sharing your time with us for a bit and giving us your attention for a couple of hours-ish. I'm not ending it just yet. I just thought I'll start saying this stuff now, because usually it takes me like 5 or 10 minutes at the end. You know,
I do like the images. You have to. This is the. Yeah, I'll have to get these images for Wednesday as well. Some good ones there.
Yep. Geneva Convention. You can go and check it up for yourself. You know, don't just believe the crazy tinfoil hatters online. Go and look up this stuff for yourself, because truth cannot be given. It can only ever be realized. See, nobody else can do that for you.
They're starting to slip it into it, trying to slip into the public consciousness. Like they're interviewing like MPs on Sky and that. And so, do you think the mandatory vaccine? Do you think it should be a mandatory? Oh no, I don't think we need to do that at the moment. And that, you know, just drip my anti.
Because enough idiots will turn up. They hoping that they'll just take it anyway. So.
And hello to Jeff in the chat. Thanks for jumping in the chat, right? This is a really good moment as well, because you mentioned about the mandatory vaccine and stuff. And here in the UK, we've got this supposedly, allegedly upcoming vaccine. Jeff made a point on his show the other night, which I think is an immensely good observation to some of this situation. I've suggested over the last few weeks that this early rollout of the vaccine is most likely damage control, because they know they're losing control of the narrative, and more experts and scientists and doctors and whatever are coming and speaking out against it. So they're making the suggestion of a vaccine being available now to try and grab as many people who still believe the bullshit as possible, you know, and create more justification for their narrative. But Jeff made a point the other night that this current rollout of this vaccine they're saying that they've got ready could potentially be a complete placebo, which means there's not going to be any ill effects from it, most likely, unless people suffer from a nocebo effect. Yeah, they might have a nocebo reaction to the placebo, thinking that it's going to do them harm or whatever. But the point being, the system, in that fashion of trying to do damage control on the narrative, could roll out a placebo and just tell the public that, yes, this is the vaccine. They'll do a mass vaccination, and then they'll publish statistics saying, well, look, see, we vaccinated all these people and nobody got ill. Yeah, because it's not actually really a vaccine, it's a placebo. Yeah. So that will create an immense amount of justification to then push the argument of the mandatory vaccination. Because they can turn around and go, look, folks, we've got it ready. We've given it to these, 1 million or 5 million people. You said they bought doses for, yeah?
Yeah, 5
We've
million,
given it to 5 million people, and only, a handful have had some kind of adverse reaction. Nobody's died. So now do you agree to it being mandatory?
And you can stop listening to all those crazy anti-vaxxers. Didn't we tell you it was all for your own good?
Yeah. So this is, application of critical thinking and observation of what's going on at the moment. Don't believe all the hype. Thanks for Jeff to that idea, and because that was spot on. Yeah. Please go and check out his channel, folks, if you haven't seen it before. Jeff Censored is his main channel, and he's got some other channels as well where he puts up some other content. Because the way YouTube works now, you can't rely on a singular channel sometimes. If you're doing this kind of content, you always have to have a backup channel, and often it's a good idea to have a different channel for different kinds of content so that the algorithm doesn't jump on you with everything. I was in the midst of saying something earlier as well, which I forgot to sort of finish up, talking about the fact I'm not online 24/7 on YouTube or on the internet. And just to mention, as kind of like, that kind of housekeeping element of running this channel, if you post a comment under a video or something like that and I don't immediately reply to it, that's because I don't spend every hour connected to the internet. Yeah. So if you post a comment at a time when I'm not online, I'm not going to reply to it until the next time I'm online. So please don't take it personally if you post something and you get zero response or whatever. And I don't necessarily respond to every single comment, But this, it's that same thing again. So many people have become used to or acclimatized to having this connection constantly there all the time. Yeah. I've got relatives who, even though I've ranted at them about this stuff, they'll still do things like they go to sleep with it next to them on their pillow, or on the bed next to them or whatever, because they've fallen asleep while looking at stuff on Facebook or playing a silly game or something, or chatting with their mates in the chat room, and they've fallen asleep with it there, and then they'll wake up in the middle of the night when it pings and a notification at them or some shit.
Or it's disappeared. You might have eaten it in the night or something.
If you try to claim that these things aren't addictive and yet you can't see that for what it is, there's something wrong with your thinking process, because you're not looking at the observation and connecting 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah. If people can't leave it somewhere away from their bedroom when they go to bed, if they feel a need to have it next to them all the time and shit, that's addiction. And if this thing is addictive, it is like a direct line, a direct funneled connection into their psyche. Yeah, that object can project things straight into them because they're so addicted to it, they can't see their own process that they're going through. Yeah, they can't sort of step back and take an observation of their own behavior because they're hooked into it.
And the device is partly that digital panopticon.
Yeah, the system absolutely wants us to be connected to a device 24/7. Back like 20 years ago, I thought a lot of the talk about implanted chips under the skin and stuff like that was probably where it was heading. But over time, through the noughties, as I saw how popular mobile phones became, and then in the last decade, where they have almost literally become like a requirement to live in modern society. And I could see how people were getting so hooked on them that, how else do you describe it other than it's an externalized chip in that old cliched conspiracy idea of they're going to put chips in everyone? Yeah, they don't need to put a chip in you because you're willingly walking around carrying it with you all the time. Yeah, to take a break from it every now and then. When you go out and about, leave it at home once in a while. You don't necessarily need to have it with you all the time. And just because I know there's some people that will trip over and take things too literally, if you feel a need to have it with you, take it with you. If you've got something going on where you need to have a connection to people in your life, take it with you. You know, there is a safety level of making use of the technology that is beneficial to us, but you also need to be able to turn it off when you don't need it. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like the memes. Yeah, memes can be good and bad. I thought this was interesting this week as well. At the same time as his company are now the first ever privately owned enterprise that has been used to send astronauts into space. Yeah, the team have just launched the first commercial rocket to take NASA astronauts to the space station. And on the same week that happens, I think it only happened yesterday or Saturday, I think it was, the launch. On the same weekend, Musk is posting this about how he's been tested. Yeah, and he's now got to go into isolation and shit. He couldn't be at the launch because he'd had these tests, supposedly.
I find him very, very kind of
dubious
character. Aye, dubious. Aye, I think he's a major player in what's going to come ahead. For me, I think what they're trying to do is merge the sexes, merges with technology, and merges with the animal kingdom through genetic editing. And I think he's going to be a big player in it's known that he's introducing this Neuralink. So that's I think that's it's going to link us to artificial general intelligence hive mind, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that man is to be watched. What a fucking eagle with a telescope, you know. Very suspicious character.
Yeah. And the introduction of the Tesla, the first commercially mass-produced vehicle that has auto drive installed as a standard. Yeah, so driverless cars, basically.
Mm.
And, you know, you just have a mooch around on the internet and you can find little stories here and there about how these Tesla auto drive devices are crap, cause people accidents and just do weird things.
I just noticed there was a comment. Just
keeping it nice and simple.
Yeah.
Just noticed a wee comment there for Apple. Like, what is a panopticon?
Oh, okay.
It's a type of prison, you know. It's got a central observation tower that's placed within a circle of prison cells, so that from the tower the guard can see every cell and inmate, but the inmates can't see into the tower, so the prisoners never know whether they're being watched or not. I think that's a fitting description of the sort of society that we're living in at the moment.
Yeah.
If you do I'm pretty sure it is still on Wiki. As far as I know, they haven't taken it off the Wikipedia. So if you don't know about it, just do a search on Wikipedia for Panopticon. And yes, it is the Ikipedia. So just use it as a starting off point. But this is going back again as well to the turn of last century and the rise of what could be called scientism and eugenics. The Panopticon was part of that entrepreneurial mindset of trying to manage society like a farm and running livestock. The Panopticon idea was part of that.
It's like the way the people are enforcing each other. They've got their mask on, you know, like these true believers. They're going to be the people that we're trying to wake up are ultimately the ones that are going to act as the fucking sheepdogs and try and enforce this. You know, that's the sort of panopticon mentality. You know, where they're grassing on each other and all that, you know. Like, that's the sort of mindset
like
it
this.
engenders.
Yeah.
You police yourself, Super Leagues, bang on.
They look out at somebody else not following the rules, and just like in the Stasi state, they report you to the authorities.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Wiki, because their explanation was that of BitChute is a video hosting service known for accommodating far-right individuals and conspiracy theorists, and for hosting hateful material. So there's a good,
Nice compartmentalization.
Yeah, that's Wiki's description of BitChute.
And again, it is an unfortunate reality that the system will, like I was talking about in that video I linked earlier that is from 9 years ago, the system will either create the controlled opposition from scratch. So they will create those kind of limited hangout environments where you think you're escaping the system, but you're just moving from one paddock into another.
Yeah.
Or if they don't outright create them, they will try and co-opt and take over any that naturally emerge. So whenever any social movement starts to gain ground and gain influence in the public's ear, in the public's mind, the system will send in agents to try and take it over or disrupt it.
Yeah.
It's just, unfortunately, the way it is. That's the environment, the way it is.
Anyone trying to take it off track, then that's where the aware and everyone aware will see that they will be like that, standing out like that. You know, they would be looking like they're in a prison already, if they're going against what the will of the people is, which is for all the good stuff.
See, the first mistake this so-called 2020 warrior is making, you know, saying he's got his samurai sword and hornet repellent. Has he got the shark repellent like Batman? But the first mistake he makes is picking up that phone. If he really wants to be the 2020 warrior going out to deal with the world, just don't take the phone with you. I thought this was good, though. See, this is an example of how you don't need an organization to do something. You don't need to join a group who are the arbiters of truth, who are going to, you know, reveal the truth to you once you paid your membership. You don't need to join any particular movement. People can do things by themselves, I mean, small groups and simple actions like this. It may seem simple, but it potentially could have a massive impact based on how much traffic goes down that road. You know, these are simple little actions. May cost a little bit of money for them to get that banner printed out, but other than that, they've gone up, hung it on the bridge, and boom, there you go. And doing things like this, creating your own memes. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, but you can wield that sword to a very beneficial effect. Yeah.
Again, that's just leading into all that divisive identity politics when they're coming out with all that shit.
Yeah. Jackie mentioned it the other night, and I said to her, like, so white masks work better than black masks. And she knew what I meant. You know, she laughed at it. She knew I weren't being funny with her, but that's the kind of level of infantilized thinking that they want people to be stuck in. You know, it's just create a divide, make people feel like they have to be one side or the other of that barrier. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said earlier, that intersectional approach. You know, they need to find that little tiny gap and jump in it and go, look how different you are from each other. You should hate that other guy.
And we'll all just laugh.
Try to shoehorn the agendas in. We've had the intersectional stuff. We've even had the climate change stuff trying to get on the active. Shameless.
Yeah. See, I think Gary shared this. It's some of what's going on in Europe, you know. This is in Italy. They're starting to realise that marching a protest march is never, ever going to make your government change their mind. Again, reference that video I put up 9 years ago. Yeah, and we've been talking about this for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Go into a protest march with the expectation that in doing so, you're going to get the government to change what they're doing. It's not a reality, and you're being naive in that expectation. I don't agree with people who say protests are useless. I don't think they're completely useless. They're only useless in that expectation of thinking the government are going to change what they're doing because you're waving a placard. You go to a protest to interact with other people that see the same thing you see, in network with people, find out information that you never knew before, find out connections to links of things you never looked at before, that networking community effect. And at the same time, you are publicly demonstrating to anyone that sees you that there is something to point at. Because if we don't make use of protests, then a lot of the issues that we're often talking about would never ever be known by the public. So the majority will never ever back or agree with stuff you're pointing at because they never even knew about it. The system will cover up all that kind of information. So if you don't take it to the public forum and say, everywhere, hey, everyone, have you seen this document? Then the public will never know about it.
I think going to a protest and expecting change is like writing a strongly worded letter to your rapist and asking him to please desist in his actions.
Yeah. Please, Boris, stop raping my mind with your stupid hairdo.
He's been locked away for a few weeks.
I promise I'll be a good citizen if you just comb your hair once in a while.
He's probably eating more Monster Munch. I believe he's in isolation, just stuffing his favourite foods.
Yeah. That one's just a nice, simple message. Yeah. What's for Christmas? And this is a good observation of the way the UK media is currently moulding the perception of the general public. We've got a little bit of royal drama in there with the Diana story. I think I figured out why that story came up again recently, with the Bashir interview and whatever. And they turned it into a little thing in the media recently.
That's right.
That's because the latest season of a show called, I think it's called The Crown, which is like a fictional drama based on the life of the royal family. That's just about to start. So all this kerfuffle over Diana and the Bashir interview is purely a marketing tactic to get people interested in the royal drama for when that show starts again. And isn't it funny how it's called The Crown? Corona. Yep. The Queen and the rest of the royal family won't be able to jump the queue for COVID vaccine. Rich people will be banned from buying jab, and even Boris will have to wait his turn. See, we're with you, folks, as long as you take the vaccine. In other words, none of them want it because they all know it's fucking bogus, so they ain't going to be having it. But they play this spin game of making it sound like, the government care about you more than the royals because they're not going to be allowed to jump the queue. No, they don't fucking want it. All right. Yeah, I think that's enough sharing memes for this evening. We just hit the hour, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Apologies if we weren't sharing that many links this week. Hopefully, as I said, if people want to share links, post them under the video after the live show is finished. Because it does now seem, because it's happened a few times, and some of the previous episodes, it was taking like 24 hours before the chat room would appear, then it was 48 hours, and it was 72 hours, and now it's like not at all. So the chat room for last week is just not there at all. So, if you feel you've got links you want to share, please post them under the video after the live broadcast is finished. Hopefully they won't get blocked by YouTube. I fairly regularly check the spam folder on the channel dashboard so I can approve comments and whatever. But sometimes they don't even show up in there. I've had instances where I get a notification that somebody's posted a link. I go to look for the link, it's not under the video. I go and check the spam folder, it's not there. It just does not exist. Yet I had the notification that they'd posted a link. I can see the link in the notification page tab, you know.
I think at least anyway for the chat, if we copy and paste it like we used to do in the old days, you know, just that's we'll be able to save the chat that way. I think Taz mentioned she was maybe going to do that, so
cool. Thank you if you do. I'll check it afterwards and see how much it has kept, if at all. Because on this StreamYard page, like we talked about many times before, it caches out after so long. So most of it is gone on the StreamYard chat room. And then on my YouTube live chat room, sometimes that caches out as well on my browser. So it only goes back to 9:30 this evening is as far as it goes back to.
No.
So they're just trying to make it more and more difficult, more and more awkward. They're trying to put you off more and more. Sorry?
It's harder and harder for people to communicate.
Yeah. Just throwing more and more fucking mud in your way to try and slow it all down. Don't believe the hype. Keep talking, keep thinking before they make that illegal as well. And we'll see you again soon. We'll be back on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. GMT on the Reality Chat channel. Peter will be hosting that one. We'll talk about maybe similar things, you know, see how things go on Wednesday night. As far as I know, Steve Tagoose will be on Thursday night with the Mystery Show on his channel, 8 p.m. GMT. And yeah, we'll see you again soon, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us your attention for a couple of hours. Thanks for joining in, guys.
Thanks, Cookie. And cheers to all in the chat. Thanks.
Catch you again later.